Well, welcome to the KVML Candidate Forum, featuring the two people hoping to be the next Assembly member for District 8, which covers the Mother Lode region, also stretches through Fresno and into several surrounding Central Valley communities. I'm BJ Hansen, your host. There will be a new Assembly member in this region as Jim Patterson of Fresno currently holds the seat and is terming out of office. The top two vote getters in the March primary who transferred to the general election are both Republicans, George Radanovich and David Tangipa. This forum is designed to show where they stand on issues and potentially differ, despite both being Republicans. How it will work is there will be time for opening statements, a series of questions that both candidates will answer, and then closing statements. So thank you both for coming in today. I'm going to begin with opening statements, and we had a coin flip to see who would start, and George Radanovich.
Thank you, BJ. It's great to be with you in Sonora again. I'm introducing myself as George Radanovich. Many people remember that I served Tuolumne County in Congress for a number of years and walked away in 2010 to return to my hometown of Mariposa to raise my son, King, and he's doing very well. Thank you. And I'm re-entering politics because of the sorry state of California. I can't stand back and watch this Golden State slide, into an abyss because of a horrible state legislature that's full of progressives taking it the wrong direction. And so that motivates me to jump back in and fix the state. I've got a number of ideas. I think if presented properly, the disposition of the people in California, because they're so ready for change, I think that we can persuade them to change and return a balance of power to Sacramento as quickly as possible. I have a solid reputation. I think the big difference between candidates in this race is that I won't raise your taxes and that I've got the experience necessary to take on the state and turn it around. I am endorsed by Congressman Tom McClintock, Frank Bigelow, and the Tuolumne County Republican Central Committee, and was the winner of the primary last March. But we've got to come together and turn the state around, and I think it takes experience to bring a coalition of issues, not just one, but issues that we can present to Californians and say, come back to the Republican Party because we have the answers. And we can't wait around for the pendulum to swing back with one or two new Republicans every so often. So it's time to go to work, make things happen within 4 years.
And going over to David Tangipa for opening statements.
Well, thank you, and thank you for allowing me to join you today. Again, my name is David Tangipa. Just a little bit about myself, since I am introducing myself, since I'm the newer one on the scene. I was born in the valley, raised in the foothills. I come from a little rural community out on the outskirts, not too far from here. My mother immigrated here from the island of Tonga, and my father was in the Navy. And I really worked and looked at some of the opportunities, and I grew up in that community, and I just wanted to see, especially where we're at today. And I had an opportunity to actually go play football at Fresno State, and that's where I left and quickly realized I was not an NFL guy, so I really focused on education. And I got my degree in political science, criminology, legal studies, and I even graduated early and got my master's in business, where I started working on my real estate business as well. I'm a small business owner, and I focused on helping low-income veteran families break generational poverty through home ownership. I've been able to do that, and then I guess I didn't think I was busy enough, so I started working for the Fresno County Board of Supervisors as a field representative because my passion was policy. In that same year, in 2020, I worked on COVID-19 stuff, the edicts coming out of Sacramento. And that year as well, the Creek Fire happened. And the Creek Fire was the largest single fire in California's history until the Park Fire this last year that never turned into a complex fire. And through all of this experience and the experience that I've worked there on the local level, I look at all the issues that are coming out of Sacramento and out of Washington as well that really put us in this place. And I ask people this: if experience of the past is what's gotten us here today, what are we doing different? What are we recycling on this part and going over and over again? I think about the cost of living, gas, groceries, and insurance, and all of this are hurting people every single day. And we've got to do something different, and I'm working on that. So just like the work that I've done as a co-chair for the Prop 36 reform and an honorary co-chair, we are taking on criminal justice reform right now and doing the things necessary, not just talking about them, being active.
We're now going to go to a series of questions where we can learn a little bit more about yourselves and your opinions on different topics facing the state. We're going to rotate back and forth in regards to who answers first. We'll start first with George Radanovich. And spiking fire insurance is on many people's minds in the foothills. What should be done at the state level to address this problem?
You know, it's one of the privileges of going to Sacramento and speaking to the community is speaking to the people that are responsible for insurance and providing insurance in this state. And, you know, there's no question that we're facing an increase in fires and catastrophic fires. They were due really to some bad forest policy on the part of the National Forest Service over the years, and a big drought set up like a perfect storm for these storms to come, these high wind, dry storms to come through and burn down half the forest. Part of it is because we've had more fires. The bigger problem, I think, is something called Proposition 103, which was passed in the early 1990s. It was passed by a fellow who earned $1 billion. It was a trial lawyer suing insurance companies and suing basically causing the overregulation of the industry in the state. And so it is the accumulation of these regulations as a result of Prop 103 that basically makes California the least desired state in the union for insurance companies. So insurance companies are walking out of the state, and it's the basic supply of law and demand. If you wanted the law of supply and demand, if you want to be able to get insurance, you should be able to get bids from 5 or 6. There's no more insurance companies in the state, and they're leaving, and it's mainly because of Proposition 103. My big issue in Sacramento is identifying things like that and a number of other laws that need to be unwound, that need to be, that they were passed by liberal progressives, and we need to unwind these laws, which will help return and make insurance affordable to people in Tuolumne County again.
And David Tangipa, same question over to you. Your take on rising fire insurance and things that should be done to address it.
Yeah, we see these same issues, and those same individuals that George is talking about in Sacramento actually support me in the work that I've been doing to tackle on insurance. Insurance is a major component to my business. I can't sell a home here for families that are trying to get out because they would rather be California refugees than California fighters fighting for this community, and now they can't even sell their home to move somewhere else. And that's the issue that we're seeing today. Our forests have been mismanaged. In the 1950s, we had the wood famine, which led to a lot of people going and clear-cutting a lot of different areas. And then in the 1960s and 70s, we had the regulations of the EPA that restricted access to the forest. We should no longer be stuck in dealing with these issues from a long time ago. We are in 2024. We understand that it is not healthy right now to have 800 to 1,000 trees per acre, and I am running for office to make sure that we can take care of these issues and proper forest management. Insurance companies work in the business of risk. The risk to be here is so high. As I had stated, the Creek Fire in Fresno County burned over 800 structures. 380,000 acres. The Park Fire, not too far from here. And if we think that fire is not coming, it is. Fire will always be here. We've got to tackle a lot of these issues. Proper forest management is extremely important. But it's also on the work that I've done, and is why I'm supported by these groups to tackle these issues. I've put together fire-wise communities and having fire insurance town halls because I know residents right now are paying $7,000, $9,000, $12,000 a year, where some of them would rather just take the money off the market, put it in a high-interest savings account, because that at least guarantees that the money's going to be there next year. Because what's stopping insurance companies from dropping them? Insurance like Liberty Mutual, State Farm, and everybody is dropping California because it does not work. We cannot keep doing the same thing and electing the same people to solve issues that they created in the past.
David Tangipa, I'm going to stay with you for the next question. Both of you are Republicans. I'm curious about your approach. If elected, do you see yourself as someone who goes in as a warrior for the conservative cause, or do you see yourself more as a bridge builder looking for common ground with the opposing party?
I think I'm actually both. I'm a warrior that fights for the common person. and the individuals here across the entire Central Valley, because that's what I've done to bring back common sense. And it's actually doing the work that's necessary. The main reason why I see what happened with Prop 47 reform, but I got to work. And I started collecting signatures to make sure that we can do basic things like add additional penalties for fentanyl dealers, make sure that there's mandatory treatment programs for homeless, because it is not compassionate to allow homeless individuals to just stay on the street and to live and to be induced by drugs in different communities. But also, I got to work and actively collected signatures, thousands of signatures, and did the work necessary. And I see myself as being a warrior because that was unconventional. But not only that, I was a warrior and also working with Senator Shannon Grove on a bill that also made child sex trafficking a felony in California, because that was not already done, and it shocked me. But it shocked me to the point where I needed to work harder. And when these same individuals in Sacramento said that it wasn't worth it to keep pedophiles in prison, I made sure that I knew exactly who was pushing that and what we needed to do differently. And so I look at myself as being a warrior because I'm going to take those necessary steps to be a common sense individual and to build a bridge with anybody who wants to put Californians first, who wants to protect the rural communities, give water to the valley farmers, make sure our forests are properly managed, make sure that your grocery bills, insurance bills, and everything else isn't killing you at the end of the month. And so I will be the warrior and the bridge builder for the people here.
And Mr. Radanovich, same question to you. Do you see yourself as kind of a warrior for the conservative cause or more of a bridge builder?
BJ, I just saw the movie Reagan the other day and loved the movie. People should go watch it. But in that movie, Tip O'Neill came to visit Ronald Reagan when he was shot and in the hospital. And that is an example, I think, of how to be in Sacramento, where you fight like hell during the legislative session, but you go out and have a drink at 6 o'clock that night together. And you treat each other as human beings. And when I go to Sacramento, I think that there's a number of ways that you can influence to get this state on a conservative track again. One is to work with you in a way that you can with the legislature on the things that you can do. But then you have to appeal to the Republican Party to develop an agenda that will bring people back to the party so that we can begin to elect more Republicans. And then you got to take your case to the people of California and change their hearts and minds about the foolishness of what the legislators are doing up there. I know that in order to be able to fix things in California, you're not going to be able to get it through this legislature. So you've got to build public support for the initiatives. And you've also got to use ballot initiatives, propositions to be able to fix things. They're wonderful tools to use for a legislator because they can help keep the legislature on track on certain issues. So you got to build up public support for propositions that will unwind the bad laws that have been passed. Work with the legislature on the things that you can do. Treat people like love your neighbor and treat them with respect, but fight like hell in and outside the system to be able to make California conservative again. And I do think that that's possible.
Staying with George Radanovich for the next question. Homelessness is visible most any place you go in California right now. What should the state do to address rising homelessness?
You really need to address the issue, and I think that California is a tough place to live in because expensive because the laws that the liberal politicians have passed in Sacramento have made it too restrictive. CEQA's, the California Environmental and Quality Improvement Act is a perfect example. Back in 1972, something called the National Environmental Protection Act, NEPA, was passed. 16 states adopted state versions of CEQA. Guess which one's the most restrictive? There's only one of those 16s where environmental policy impacts state, federal, local, private projects, and has a global warming element. We're the most environmentally restricted state in the union, and it's laws like that were passed by San Francisco elites to stop growth, and it's working. And those are the things that need to be reversed to make housing more affordable. You've also got to be able to clear out the drug use that's on the community and the meetings that gather together for drug use. You've got to be able to build mental hospitals. I'm sorry, and I hate to say it that way, but some people need to be institutionalized, and others need to be dried out and put and reformed through what I call ACE legislation. There's a number of things that need to be done. You just have to approach the problem and solve it. It was tied up in the courts that you were restricted from having people off the streets and getting them out of public spaces. That no longer exists now, and so that's very helpful. But you got to be able to drive people out, and you got to get those that need to be in institutions and off the street, and you have to make housing more affordable again.
David Tangipa, same question over to you on homelessness.
Well, and I would say that this is the biggest difference between George and I in this campaign, is that George is talking about a lot of the things, like whether it's a ballot initiative or taking on these different issues, and I'm actually doing them. Again, as I had stated, I am a co-chair and an honorary chair of Prop 36, which reforms Prop 47 that has created a lot of the issues we see today, from crime, drugs, homelessness. And how do we tackle these issues? We actually go to work. And what Prop 36 does is it creates mandatory treatment programs for those who are homeless and addicted to drugs. We've created a social safety hammock that was originally intended to be a social safety net here in California. And we cannot allow these individuals to keep hanging out in that hammock. We've got to raise the standard, and that is exactly what Prop 36 does. And I am truly honored to join Lisa Smittcamp, DA Anne-Marie Schubert, and sheriffs all across the entire state, the Sheriff's Association and all of them, on Prop 36, because that is doing the work, not just saying we need to do these things. And that's where I'm honored. And not only that, for what I've done here in Sonora as well, 3 years ago, I volunteered with one pile at a time to clean up one of the homeless encampments here. Not only that, on this, Saturday coming up, I actually am speaking at the Sonora Fentanyl Awareness Group with Lisa Machado, because it matters to me, because I have family members that were addicted. I have family members that have gone through these issues, and I've seen it personally. Somebody extremely close to me has died from fentanyl, committed suicide through fentanyl. We have an issue coming here. We have a huge issue that we need to get active in doing. And that's where I'm asking people, you want to solve homelessness right now? Let's take the first step together, and let's vote yes on Prop 36. Join me on that bill.
Didn't mention if any candidate was attacked, I would allow 20 seconds to respond. Mr. Radanovich, did you want to add anything?
No,
Okay.
I'm fine.
We'll move on to the next question here, and we'll stay with David Tangipa on this one. And it's kind of related to homelessness, some overlapping things. And I'm just curious about your thoughts on housing in California, the rising cost of housing, and what, if anything, should be done at the state level.
Well, my business is housing. I focused on helping people get into housing, and we look at it today. The average home cost in California is $900,000. I ask anybody, how is that affordable? Hey, we've got to get rid of these California policies of scarcity that have restricted access through building red tape and limiting individuals. And I mean, we look at all of how California and the government does not build housing. Builders do. Developers do. Let's empower those at the local level. I think Tuolumne and Sonora knows how to build housing and allocate that better than the state of California. I think Fresno knows how to do it better. I think Merced and Tuolumne and all these other areas can do it better than Sacramento, and they really try to paint with a broad brush, and they like to listen to San Francisco, LA, and all these different ones, but those areas are restricted. We've got to cut the red tape. When we look at the numbers behind housing, almost 40% right now of the cost of housing is simply entitlements and getting through regulations. Well, if there's an area right now that we can tackle, that is getting through, cutting the red tape, and allowing people to build again. We don't have a housing availability crisis. We have a housing supply crisis. Or affordability crisis, sorry. We don't have a housing affordability crisis. We have a housing availability crisis where we've just restricted that. We've just got to build more housing. That's the best way to reduce cost.
And George Radanovich, over to you. Same question, rising cost of housing in the state. Are there changes that should be made to address it?
BJ, I spoke about it before, CEQA, but it really is, California's just become a bureaucratic state. And that needs to be unwound. My purpose in going to Sacramento is to identify all the laws put together to restrict development in California by the San Francisco elites. They've passed it because they don't want any growth. They've got theirs. They don't want anybody else to have it. The overregulation that is occurring at the state level needs to be unwound. And you can't just go to Sacramento and do that without putting it together with a number of initiatives that show how we can free up the state and create some better housing and make housing more affordable. David's right. I mean, it's overregulation and it needs to be unwound. And, that is the purpose of going to Sacramento, is to change that legislature so that Californians can be free to prosper and the price of housing goes down. You can't do that without repealing things like AB 32, the Global Warming Initiative, which makes food and fuel more expensive. It adds to the cost of materials for housing. CEQA's another one. It's really about unwinding the bad laws that have been passed in Sacramento.
Taking a look at the issue of the economy, and George Radanovich, the foothills and the valley are much different than the Bay Area and L.A. What are things that you feel the state could do to help businesses in the more inland and rural parts of the state?
Get off their backs and let them. It again is the overregulation that occurs. I mean, the state and federal laws infiltrate their way all the way down into small and local communities, and those regulations that are passed. I was speaking with a developer just earlier today. Large corporations can absorb the cost of CEQA and some of these other regulations in huge developments that they do in urban areas. That is simply not the case in rural areas like Sonora, Mariposa, and Oakhurst. They can't. And so it really just locked good land up from being developed. There's only 2% of Tuolumne County that's available for development here, and that's not a lot. We're somewhat restricted because of the mountainous terrain here, but every opportunity ought to be taken to take advantage of developing that 2%. And it's not just county regulations, it's state regulations, and even some federal that work their way all the way down into this to be able to make it impossible for people to build homes, and hugely expensive now. So really it's number one thing is getting a balance of power in Sacramento so that we have enough Republicans there to be able to unwind these bad regulations and free up people in small communities to be able to live their lives and prosper and build homes and open up businesses in the rural areas.
And David Tangipa.
California has to stop painting with a broad brush, because that's what we've done. What works in Sacramento, LA, San Francisco, the Bay Area, and all these other places does not work everywhere across California. I mean, California has more people in this state than the entire country of Canada. And yet we try to paint all the way across like it fits the mold. We have geographical differences. I mean, we have the largest Mediterranean climate in the world, and we have some of the most abundant and amazing sierras and resources in our mountain community. And yet Sacramento really thinks that it's a one-size-fits-all type of ordeal. And I want to be that voice, both for the valley and a fighter for the foothills that understands in a modern era what we need to do right now to just free up businesses. We look at the insurance costs when it comes to the crime and different things that are happening, when businesses are being broken into by homeless individuals. That makes it harder for businesses just to stay open. We look at the utility costs right now that are going across. And this, for the fourth time this year, the California Public Utility Commission voted to increase utility costs. I spoke to a restaurant owner not too long ago, and the guy's paying $20,000 a month in just PG&E. It's cost in California that is killing businesses. California businesses cannot survive if we keep going down this path, and we can't keep electing the same individuals expecting different results. To come into this area and to fix it now, why didn't they fix it then? And it's time to do the work, because it's my business. And it's the 20 years of business that I want to think about in the future, that I just want to be here in California. But that's not happening because of the regulations in Sacramento. And it's time that we need new energy and new ideas and new experiences there so we can bring them back from the brink and bring back common sense.
Staying with David Tangipa for this next question. California has a lot of companies that are leading the way when it comes to artificial technology, artificial intelligence technology. What role should the state have, if any, in regulating this new technology?
Well, actually, I think that with artificial technology, a lot of people are scared because it's new and it's different. But I often tell people this is the third industrial revolution, if you want to really think about it, whether we go from the first industrial revolution to the internet era and now with AI. And AI systems are actually, to me, it's the largest inflation reduction tool that we have today because we can speed up people's processing significantly faster. The work that one person has done can now do 10. It's just like moving on from creating blueprints with a protractor to processing it with computers to now computer imaging and all of the different things. So where it comes, Sacramento doesn't know what to do when it comes to AI. There are certain things that do make sense, like making sure that AI-generated images no longer include children. And that was a bill that I supported there, that they couldn't utilize pictures of kids and different things online to create these ridiculous and horrific images. Well, that's legislation that makes sense. But we can't expect Sacramento to solve a lot of these issues, and we have to figure out and actually embrace this next step and then really focus on where can we add these different fixes here and there. But we should really trust the experts on that. And I think when it comes to that type of modern technology, we need somebody who actually understands it to be in Sacramento so that way we can regulate it properly.
And George Radanovich, your opinions on the state's role in regulating AI?
Not really an opinion on it. To be honest with you, BJ, I think the huge problem that needs to be solved in Sacramento is returning to the state to a balance of power right now. Right now, Republicans can't even affect a 2/3 vote in Sacramento. And along with AI, but I think what's more important to Californians really is the high cost of living, the tax increases on gasoline and groceries. And, that can only be solved by getting more Republicans and a balance of power in Sacramento. So, I'm sure the AI thing will work itself out. I don't really have it. My focus will be to be able to elect Republicans and affect the legislature so that they don't go hairball on so many ideas that come across for votes in this state, like on transgender issues in schools, on the going after the oil companies for price gouging, which is just ridiculous. That will be my goal, will be to convince people with a plan to elect more Republicans so we bring a balance of power so that back to Sacramento and stop California from going off the progressive cliff with the number of representatives that are there right now. To me, that's the more urgent thing, is making California affordable by getting some kind of balance of power in Sacramento and reversing the bad laws that have been passed.
Staying with George Radanovich for the next question, what are some practical things you feel the state could do to curb crime in California?
Well, I think passing Prop 36 is the number one thing. I'm very happy that initiative is being taken, but we need to go further. Back in the Prop 57 days when Governor Jerry Brown was faced with prison overcrowding, his solution was letting prisoners go free and not building more prisons. And I think the state needs to kind of begin to look at why are we sending more. What kind of communities do we have that sends more people to prisons? But you got to build more as a response, not let them out. And since then, we've taken a real a tract on crime that is pro-criminal and turning these people out onto the streets when they shouldn't be, the mentally ill when they should be housed in government facilities, is the wrong answer. And so not only do we need to reform Prop 47, but Prop 57 as well would let people out of the prisons. AB 32, we need to become a law and order state again where people respect authority. And so I'm very happy with the movement on Prop 36. It's only the beginning of, any number of things that need to be done to pass and fix laws like 47 and AB 32 as well. And we need to build more prisons, until we can change the culture of this state so that we don't have to send so many people to prison.
And David Tangipa, same question about things that can be done, practical things to reduce crime in California.
Yeah, well, as I had stated a million times before, Prop 36 is that step. And that first step that we are taking to hold criminals accountable again. And we have done the work necessary to get it so that way we can move California back away from this ridiculous ideology of criminal justice reform and letting everybody out, open doors. And it's actually right now, our prison populations are actually significantly down. They are shutting down prisons. We need to keep those same ones open. And I'm actually honored to be endorsed and supported by public safety groups that all say that I am the tough on crime candidate. Whether it's PORAC, CCPOA, a lot of the police officers, correctional officers, and different sheriffs up and down this entire state. The president of the Sheriff's Association of California, Mike Boudreau, is supporting me in this because of the work that we are doing. Not just talking about it and getting it done. What most people need to know about Prop 36 is that it will end retail theft. It changes the law that if somebody continuously steals, that they can be charged with a felony. And why did I start working on that? Because I was the victim of a smash and grab. And I went after these individuals because they stole a tracking device of mine. And I had worked with Clovis PD, this was in the Valley, to find them. And then what I found out was that they were out within 24 hours after breaking into 15 other vehicles as well. Well, these groups have to stop. And the only way we stop it is by doing the work, like voting yes on Prop 36. Like it also creates additional penalties for fentanyl dealers. And if somebody deals fentanyl and knowingly deals fentanyl, they can be charged for murder because we tried to get that through Sacramento. And they said no. We tried to get that, and Jim Patterson, and I'm honored to be endorsed by current sitting Assemblyman Jim Patterson for this, tried to pass that bill to get those differences, and they're not listening. It's time that they do listen to us, and we put it on the ballot so they can hear us.
Stay with David Tangipa. And California has some of the highest energy prices in the country, highest gas prices. PG&E rate hikes keep going up. Mm-hmm. What changes would you like to see when it comes to energy policies in California?
Well, it's simple. Free up California and the resources that we have here. I look at all of the issues and these policies of scarcity that come out of Sacramento. Sacramento does a really good job at making everything harder, which makes everything more expensive. I think about the renewable energies portfolio that we have here in California. They don't include dams, large-scale hydroelectrical facilities, on their green and renewables portfolio. It's not considered green. So Tolok or Don Pedro or Shaver Lake or the Big Helms or the Helms project that has more than enough energy to sustain the entire Central Valley is not included. And that's where I always tell people we're the 5th largest economy in the world, and yet we have rolling blackouts. That's not an issue that we have in California. That's a management issue. And that comes from the people who are currently in charge today and of the past, that created these issues and could have taken them on before. But now they want to take them on today. But yet, it's a supply and demand. We've limited the supply, and the demand keeps going up with rising population here in California. Cut those red tapes, make it simple, add all large-scale hydroelectrical facilities that are existing today on the green and renewables portfolio. We will lower people's cost by simply increasing the supply and letting it be done that way. We look at it when it comes to nuclear as well. That is not considered green and renewable in California, even though it doesn't produce one single carbon emission. I've had these conversations with those across the aisle, just getting them to pull the blindfold off and say, let's stop barging in oil from Venezuela and all these other countries, and let's utilize the natural resources here, because it doesn't make sense. And if it's on your side of the ideology, you're actually adding more carbon emissions by just restricting it here when Californians can do it cleaner, better, and safer than anywhere else in the world.
And George Radanovich, same question about changes in energy policies.
Yeah, I was working with the oil industry in Sacramento the other day, and they mentioned, I asked them, I said, what's your profit on a gallon of gas? And they said 7 cents. And the tax on a gallon of gas is $1.80 and going up. And the state of, the legislators in Sacramento have the nerve to start going after the oil industries for price gouging. And this $1.80 a gallon is even before the 50-cent global warming tax imposed on that. The reason gas is so expensive in California is because of taxes, and it's directly attributed to AB 32, which is the global warming initiative that is forcing everybody into electric vehicles, and their way of speeding that up is to demonize fossil fuels, to just say we want you out of the state, and that to me is just an elitist approach to whatever's happening with our climate that makes the elitists feel really good, but it's a horrible burden on middle class and the poor, and gas taxes and the cost of everything else that fossil fuel affects, like the price of groceries, transportation, everything else. It drives up the cost. So my plan is to develop a slate of bad laws that are on the books now: 47, 57, 108. Those are the crime ones. AB 32, which is just it's elites chasing unicorns piece of legislation that's a fantasy way of approaching the changing climate around here. CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act, and Prop 103, and put them on, get them all reversed so that this state can return to some kind of sanity again.
Wildfires have been brought up already in this forum, in this debate, but it's such a big issue for this part of the state. So I'm curious your thoughts on what, if anything, could be done to make California less prone to catastrophic wildfires. And George Radanovich, you're first.
Yeah, I think it's the 95% of the fires are started by people. It's contrary to what you would think normally. California's filling up with more people, and more people are getting into encroaching into forest land. That's part of the problem. So the cleaner we can keep our forest, the better fire protection that we'll get out of it. The other thing is finally, I think the Forest Service is beginning to, and the environmentalists are standing in the way, but are beginning to realize that timber harvesting is a good way a good tool for forest management to protect catastrophic wildfires. During the time of the drought, when a lot of the trees were dying, we should have had the foresight to go in and haul that timber out when it was good, before it settled on the forest floor and then became subject to the high winds and fires that started. But I think the best thing that we can do is haul timber out of that forest and manage it. And no more idea that from the environmental community that you need to leave the forest alone. That is not going to solve anything, and it'll just increase the fire hazard. So I think the more communities can get together to clean the understory out of their subdivisions, and then the more that we can manage and haul timber out of the forest is, to me, the best way to be able to manage a threat out there, and then get people to be fire wise. I mean, people do stupid things to start fires out there, and we've got to be able to educate them, but also have strict laws when they break them and cause fires.
And David Tangipa, same question about making California more resilient to catastrophic wildfires.
Well, BJ, this is actually something that's very personal to me. Again, as I had stated, I worked on the Creek Fire, which was the largest single fire in California's history that never turned into a complex fire. Up until, even in that same year, the Lightning Fire and the Dixie Fire also happened, the Park Fire and the Paradise Fire. And how many more fires need to happen before we start doing a different playbook and we learn from those in the past that have seen that what is currently going on today is not working? It's not. Friends, family, my business are being burned out because of the mismanagement of our forests, whether it's U.S. Forest Service, California Forest, or different areas that just don't know what to do. We need to empower and revive the timber industry here. That's something that I actively worked on with the Auberry Mill site, where I worked with the Fresno County Board of Supervisors to give them a grant so that they could reconnect to PG&E and large-scale energy so they could be back because that's where we can solve the issues of forest. Our forests are overgrown. We have about 800 to 1,000 trees per acre, according to UC Berkeley's Blodgett Forest Project. I went into UC Berkeley to do a panel with those that don't agree with my ideology. Their big thing is carbon emissions in the air, and mine is proper forest management. And I told them this. I said that the Creek Fire, Dixie Fire, and Lightning Fire put more carbon emissions in the air than 20 years of California mitigation policies. If you want to actually reduce that, then let's properly manage our forest. Let's reallocate that material here, locally harvest here, towards the affordable housing that you want to talk about, because you can't have affordable housing without affordable material. By properly managing our forest, we will lower fire insurance. That really saves the pocketbooks of those here in this community. And we need to get back to common sense. We can't be stuck in those policies from the 1970s and 1950s. It's time we have modern solutions for that.
My next question, both of you have very distinct and interesting backgrounds. I'm curious your thoughts on what you feel in your background, whether it's personal or professionally, that makes you the best candidate for this position.
Yeah, I think a lot of the work that I've done, and I just think about my personal experience. Again, as I had stated, my mother immigrated here to follow and chase the American dream. My father was a 100% disabled veteran. I grew up in low-income housing and got a chance to go and play football and change my life and change the lives. And I just got active to start helping my friends, family, and different individuals break generational poverty through home ownership. But as I approached that, I could clearly see how much harder it's getting here in California, not because California is having issues, but because California is mismanaged, just like our forest, just like everywhere else across the board. Sacramento and the ideology in Sacramento does not understand the common person, and I want to be that new individual that just kicks down the door and says, hey, I'm here. And I'm here to represent the rural mountain community. And I'm here to represent the valley because we don't have a voice. And I'm loud. And I make sure that people hear because I do the work that we need. And I believe that my experience working at a local level with the County Board of Supervisors, working with farmers, working with forestry and managers and different ones across the board make me the most qualified because I understand the issues today and from those in the past that created the issues. We can't trust them. Political insanity is voting for the same people and expecting different results. And we're here to do something different.
And George Radanovich, what in your background, personally or professionally, make you feel that you're the best fit?
I think the biggest contrast between David and I is the experience that we bring into the people of the assembly district here. My opponent is new to politics, and one of the first things he's done is support tax increases on the people of Fresno County. I don't think that's I think that's a naive approach to going in, and I'm a little concerned about people sending somebody with the naivety and experience into Sacramento. He's supported by labor unions that want to make it easier to pass taxes, and they think that they can influence him that way. It's the basic example of experience versus no experience. People know me and my reputation of being anti-tax, anti-regulation, pro-life, pro-gun. It's not going to change, never has. And I'll take that experience into Sacramento to get us to a balance of power as within 4 years with a plan to be able to improve the economy of the state and swing things around and eventually make California more conservative again. I believe California can lead the way for the renewal for the state, for the whole United States once we start here. And I believe I have the experience and the ability and the influence to be able to persuade people in that direction with a plan to change the state and nation.
And David Tangipa, did you want 20 seconds to respond to the points made against you?
I do. People do know George, and they remember the Radanovich failed record because he voted to support $1.1 billion to the IRS to go after families and chase them for their taxes. People remember the Radanovich failed record that supported $700 billion to bail out Wall Street while he bankrupted
that was all paid back
while he bailed out his own
with
businesses.
Yeah.
And that's the thing.
Right.
People remember. And
Well,
they do
cut you
remember
off
that.
there. We'll move on to the next question here, and it's going to go into water, which is another issue that's important across California. It's back over to George Radanovich. Are there some initiatives you'd like to see the state do when it comes to water supply over the coming decades?
Yeah, I think more water storage in the state. I think that, again, CEQA is in the way of increasing the water storage in the state. There's a number of there's two things that need to happen to increase water storage. One is to get it through the Delta, as the Northern California water through the Delta, and then it's to increase water storage in the part of the state between the Delta and the Tehachapis. And there is a number of two good projects that would be cheap and affordable to be able to move water through the Delta. What we need to do is get it in the ground and make it more available for farmers. We have huge impediments now with laws that have been passed in Sacramento to prevent people from pumping water out of the ground, SGMA, and a number of other restrictions that are closing the land for farmers. The only answer to that is get water through the Delta and in the ground, in the underground to increase the water storage in the San Joaquin Valley. You've got water districts up here that are very good and very well managed for the water up in the mountains, but I think we've got to be able to increase water availability to the farmers in the San Joaquin. I know my opponent's going to hit me on the San Joaquin River Restoration Bill, but that was due to Friant loss of a lawsuit in court, which made them release some water down the district. But the important thing I think right now is to reverse the environmental regulations that keep us from storing water in the Central Valley and getting it through the Delta. Those are the two things that need to be done.
And same question over to David Tangipa.
Well, George is right on that part. Of course I'm going to hit him on it because it is the reason why we have water scarcity issues today. George Radanovich wrote the bill and partnered with Dianne Feinstein, Nancy Pelosi, and San Francisco elites to push out water from the Central Valley. A year, 250,000 acre-feet a year, mandatory outflow. George Radanovich wrote and authored the bill. And people have to remember that. We are in this policies of scarcity because he created it. And that's just the facts. And that's what a lot of people remember. So now is he fighting and running to fight for the bill that he wrote and authored? That's the part that I ask people to question. To just look at it and remember the record, and the voting record of the past is going to be what you're going to get in the future. Expecting different results from the same people and voting for the same people is political insanity. And I'm here to fight for farmers, and that's why I'm supported by farmers all across the entire Central Valley that remember Radanovich, selling them out. Because it's not Friant. Friant was kicked out of the room, and you can find videos online that have Cole Upton, who was one of the directors there, said that I was no longer included, and actually called them out on that. It is on record, and let's remember the past and where they're at today. Farmers have been fallowed. Thousands and thousands of acres have been left to dry because of the record that Radanovich wrote. So this is what I've been working on to promote storage here. I've been working trying to get some things passed through Congress with the Army Corps of Engineers. That way we can make these groundwater recharge sites and the flood basins built by the Army Corps of Engineers to hold 30,000 acre feet. Because right now there's a 45-day minimum window that you can only hold water there for 45 days. We can get them to change that. We can create storage right now, and that's the best way we could do it to get that done today. Get that done today, because Sacramento's not listening.
I'll take a rebuttal.
20 seconds.
You know, years ago, Friant came to me in a panic because they lost a lawsuit against an environmental group to run water down the San Joaquin River for salmon. I didn't want to do it. I did not want to participate in it, but they begged me. They're the ones who lost in court. They lost the lawsuit, and the judge would have ruled far worse than how this legislation came
George
out.
excluded them
I went
from
up
the room.
against Dianne Feinstein and a judge, an environmental judge, and the NRDC. It was 3 against 1. It wasn't going to happen. You wouldn't have made any difference in that legislation.
The
it was a
farmers
hard
were asking
decision.
him to reject
it was
the
a
bill.
hard decision to make. But leadership is that way. And his support of tax increases for Fresno State, he supported it because they've been good to him. And
because Fresno State changed my life, because I sponsored my mother's immigration, because I'm the first person to graduate.
And somebody gives you money in a labor union and say vote this way, he'll say they've been good to me. Sometimes you have to make tough decisions, and that was a tough. It would have been worse. I'll take my time.
Kicked out farmers in the room.
I'm going to have to cut it. I allowed. you guys are going back and forth, a loud little back and forth discussion, but microphones are off now for both of you guys. So you will have 2 minutes at the end for any closing comments. I do have one more question I want to get to here, and I've been asking about a lot of different topics facing the state of California in this region. I wanted to pose a question. Is there anything that I didn't ask either of you about during this forum that you're focusing on the campaign trail and feel is really important right now in California? And I'll give that to George Radanovich first.
I think really the underlying, for any one of us to be effective in California politics, you have to change the dynamic in the state. Right now, Republicans it can't even affect a 2/3 vote. We're the insignificant majority. And my opponent will go up there with the idea of, well, maybe we can win a seat here, a seat there. And, hopefully in 20 years, we might be able to fix things. It's too late for that. My plan is to go to the people of California with a 5 or 10-point plan to do these things and get their support and change the attitude in this state about that foolish legislature up there. And so that we begin to, that we can elect enough Republicans to be able to affect the majority, to be able to affect at least a 2/3 vote in Sacramento within 4 years. I can do that. I've got the ability, I've got the plans, I've got the ideas. And so you really need to think about who's going to be able to turn this state around the quickest. And that's why I'm getting into this thing. And those things, that one issue overlies every other issue that we've talked about today, and our ability to be able to have an effect on it and make the lives of people in California better. I can do that because of the experience that I've had and what I bring to the table. My opponent is youthful in experience, is going to spend years learning what I already know. And California can't afford to wait that long.
And then going over to David Tangipa, that same question, before we go into closing statements, are there any issues or that I haven't raised up or questions about issues that you are campaigning about that feel need to have some brought to the table and some light on?
We need change here in California. We need political change here in California. And George is saying that he's going to do it now. Why didn't he do it then? It's the same question that they've asked Kamala Harris. She wants to do all of these different things when she gets into office. She got in office January 2021. George Radanovich got in office back in 1988 when he ran for his first office.
I've been out for 15 years.
And then had been an influence. If he didn't do it then, why is he doing it now? That's the simple question to ask. But what I could tell people this is that I actually have worked with individuals. That's why I'm supported by over 14 members of the Assembly sitting in the legislature right now to support them because they know that I will bring that different playbook to California. I'm supported by senators, and the only one endorsed by active legislators today to make the differences because they know that it's actually doing something different, not just talking about it. I didn't run for Senate District 4 and then now run for Assembly District 8 and then going to run again for Senate District 4 like other individuals that actually sat with my same supporters trying to get them to back off of me because he said, I will use this seat to clear the way and run for SD4. I care about the people for Assembly District 8. I'm not going anywhere else. I'm the only one who's actively passed legislation to hold criminals accountable, who got working on to actually get Prop 36 on the ballot initiative. If you want somebody to do something different and not just talk about doing things differently, we've actually put in the work. I've showed up in your backyard, and I have the energy and the experience to do it. In 20 years from now, I care about this state. And if George serves a full term in the Assembly, he'll finish at 81 years old, older than Joe Biden is today.
Now we're going to move into closing comments. Each candidate has 2 minutes. This is your last chance to speak before we wrap up. So I'm going to ask that both of you don't interrupt one another. So this is your final 2 minutes here. We'll start first with George Radanovich.
BJ, thank you for the opportunity to speak to the people of Tuolumne County. I really appreciate that. And I do. After a 15-year absence of minding my own business in California, I'm jumping back in because I have the experience to help turn the state around quickly. And I have the ideas to bring in and the influence to gather people together to chart a new course for the state of California, one that makes California conservative again. I have a very good record, rock solid record on no taxes. My opponent is entering politics having supported tax increases already. And I think that's huge because the most important issue in this state of California right now is the high cost of living in California. He'll just contribute to it. So I think what I'm hoping is that the people of this assembly district and the state of California will look at me as a breath of fresh air in Sacramento with the ideas that I can bring to the state to turn the state around. And I relish that opportunity. And I would love for the people of Tuolumne County to send me there, trusting that I will fight to make this state an affordable place to live again and return the Golden State to its glory. So that's why I'm in it.
And David Tangipa, closing statements.
We see the issues where we're at here today. California is unaffordable. We can't afford groceries. We can't afford gas. We can't afford insurance. We can't build housing. And I am tired of California can't. But I can't stand more political individuals and politicians coming back saying that they will fix it now when they didn't fix it then, when they created the issues that we have today, when they could have solved it then. We're dealing with all of that right now. And if you're that individual right now listening in your car and you think we just have to do something different, if you want to entrust the future of your children and grandchildren to somebody that will be here in the next 30 years, fighting for their business, fighting for them, I don't believe we need any more California refugees. We need some California rebels who can do the work and who has the energy and the experience and has actually got it done. We can't trust those that have been here in the past to now solve the issues, again, that they had created. And that's where I'm dedicated to taking on the cost of living. I'm dedicated to bringing down and managing our forests properly. I'm dedicated to doing this because it's what I've done, because I care about this area. I don't need a political job. I care about where we're going through, just like I cared about my community. And when it comes to these, I don't support any state taxes. I don't support that at all. They have a commitment from me that there are no new state taxes, and it's time to fight back in Sacramento and go straight into the belly of the beast and push it back and give people the local control that they need because they know how to manage it better. I want to empower the people, and I'm asking people to join Team Tangipa today, and let's do something different.
Well, I want to thank George Radanovich and David Tangipa for coming in today to speak with us. The election is coming up on November 5th. Whoever your candidate of choice is, make sure to vote. If you missed any of this forum, it is archived on mymotherlode.com in the same spot as last week's forum with congressional candidates Tom McClintock and Mike Barkley. A programming note, next week will feature the 5 candidates running for Angels Camp City Council. I'm BJ Hansen. I was your moderator. We'll see you back then.